Hi guys, thanks for being here today. Thanks for having me. Let's jump right in. So in 1895, the president of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, Frances E. Willard, wrote, "Sighing for new worlds to conquer, I determined that I would learn the bicycle." This statement provocatively suggests that the bicycle might offer itself as a radical tool for women's mobility, promising the acquisition of space and of power. Throughout her book, A Wheel Within a Wheel, How I Learned to Ride the Bicycle, Willard consistently compares her mastery of the bicycle to her mastery of the world. In conquering the bicycle, she could similarly conquer the world. For Willard, this rhetoric of conquest served a metaphorical purpose and was most readily applied to her political ambitions. However, as a technology of mobility, the bicycle is capable of actual movement through space. There is the inherent potential for a physical and commercial, not merely metaphorical, conquest. Thus, in Willard's text, the late 19th century New Woman, a figure emerging out of the Victorian era and burdened with the task of simultaneously disrupting and reinforcing appropriate gender, class, and race expectations in this early white feminist project, becomes usefully linked to the mobility of the bicycle. In what follows, I would draw upon Willard's rhetoric of conquest by bicycle to examine the ways in which the New Woman interacts with the domestication of American imperialism atop her bicycle. For this task, I turned to the 1890s, a decade that put American imperialism, the bicycle craze, and the New Woman into direct contact, and offer the story of Annie Londonderry, the first woman to claim to bicycle around the world, to translate Willard's metaphor of conquest by bicycle into a literal example of one woman's quest for power through her bicycle on the global stage. Through an engagement with Anne McClintock and Amy Kaplan's theoretical frameworks, I examine how Willard's rhetoric of conquest by bicycle operates alongside Londonderry's story of global mobility to illustrate the ways in which the bicycle and the New Woman together inspire notions of world conquest, the spectacle of female embodiment, and the civilizing potential that this figure carries through domestic and global space. In 1895, the same year that Willard's text was published, Annie Cohen-Kopchovsky Londonderry, a Russian Jewish immigrant from Boston, completed her groundbreaking circumnavigation of the world by bicycle. Londonderry's conquering of the world by bicycle required that she exploit her own spectacle in order to survive and succeed in her quest. For Londonderry and many women like her, the bicycle was an important vehicle for women to access social, political, and certainly in Londonderry's case, economic change. Her journey draws upon the same symbolic value that Willard calls upon when praising the bicycle. But Londonderry's story also highlights the ways in which nationalist spectacle and commodity fetishism become entangled with the image of the New Woman and her bicycle. Although Londonderry's adventure was supposedly in response to a wager by wealthy Boston men that a woman could not travel around the world by bicycle in less than 15 months with a promise of a $10,000 prize if the feat were successfully completed, Peter Zeitlin, Londonderry's great-grandnephew, has found no evidence of such a bet in his research. Quote, "Thus, the most plausible explanation of Annie's radical decision to use a bicycle to trade one life for another is that she concocted the entire scheme herself and used the story of a wager to sensationalize her trip," end quote. Practiced in the art of publicity as a former advertising solicitor for several Boston dailies, the creation and utilization of sensational spectacle would prove to be Londonderry's greatest talent for primary means of survival and her way to achieve economic success. Indeed, Londonderry's success hinged on her ability to tell and sell fantastical stories of her worldwide adventures to American audiences hungry for, quote, "tales of bandits, war, and daring do." Here, Londonderry's attention to the way her journey would participate in a lucrative discourse of American adventure demonstrates the connection Anne McClintock makes between imperialism and spectacle, quote, "converting the narrative of imperial progress into mass-produced consumer spectacles," end quote. In addition to tall tales, much of the spectacle surrounding Londonderry's global tour was focused around the consumption of her body as a site for commodification and for gender transgression. Londonderry financed her bicycle trip through profits from advertisements. The first and most obvious alliance between advertising, adventure, and embodied identities can be found in the adoption of her surname, Londonderry, after being given a $100 sponsorship from New Hampshire's Londonderry Lithia Spring Water Company. In addition to this financial benefit, traveling as Annie Londonderry as opposed to Annie Kopczowski would transform her racialized body as a Jew into a body that could pass as a white Anglo-American. In addition to her name change, Londonderry made, quote, use of her body and her bicycle as a platform, literally, for advertising all manner of products, from bicycle tires to perfume, end quote. Londonderry's utilization of her body echoes McClintock's analysis of the ways in which both white women and racialized others are used for purposes of imperial exhibition, quote, figured not as historic agents, but as frames for the commodity, valued for the exhibition alone, end quote. Focus is removed from Londonderry's historical achievement and instead transferred to her frame. Her body is carefully dissected, her racial identity erased, and she is thus made profitable as a spectacle to exhibit and consume, like the products she advertises. On November 1st, 1894, the Buffalo Express reported on and helped to sell pieces of Londonderry's profitable body. The young woman is a sort of riding advertising agency. She wears ribbons advertising various goods and will receive $400 for one firm's ad that graces her left breast. On her right bloomer leg, she carries $100 worth of advertisements, and she has just closed a contract to cover her left arm. She says her back is for rent yet, and she hopes to get $300 for it. As a traveling billboard, Londonderry's body is, quote, trafficked promiscuously across the threshold of private and public, end quote. Here we see the blurring of the private domestic into the public imperial or global market as Londonderry's private body moves through and is owned by the public sphere. In this public global space, Londonderry's claim to femininity was highly contested, even as she relied on her identity as a woman to garner notoriety and spectacle. Her appearance, particularly the clothing she wore, transformed her into an ambiguously gendered creature. If we imagine Londonderry's body as private domestic space, we can see the ways in which this domestic space as female body was mapped as a hierarchy of specialized and distinct boundaries that needed constant and scrupulous policing. Increasingly resembling a public commodity, an extension of her advertisements, Londonderry lost her link to domestic femininity, even as this space continued to be scrupulously policed. Peter Zeitlin describes the visual aspect of this transformation from a woman into that which resembled a man. In Buffalo, Annie decided that even bloomers didn't provide enough comfort, though they were an improvement over skirts. At the boys' department of a Buffalo clothing store, she purchased a pair of pants for $5, cut several inches off the legs, and secured the bottoms, Knickerbocker style, with elastics. She also donned black stockings, gaiters, and a blue yachting cap to go with her tweed coat and vest, which the Buffalo Illustrated Express dubbed an extraordinary and exceedingly unfeminine costume. Indeed, she was now dressed as a man. Appearing in this masculine riding costume, Londonderry's transgressive gender presentation was not favorably looked upon in France, the first foreign country she set out to conquer. Comparing Londonderry to the appropriately feminine women of France, a columnist from Lyon remarked, "Truth be told, Miss Londonderry is not of the French woman's race, not even their sex. She belongs to that category of neutered beings, single women without a husband or children, that social evolution that the increasing difficulties of existence have given birth to, especially in America and in England. Miss Londonderry belongs to this third sex. It is enough to see her masculine traits, her muscled physique, her athlete's legs, her hands which appear strong enough to box vigorously, and everything masculine which emanates from her energetic being." In this passage, Londonderry's masculinity is signaled through the clothing she wears, the bicycle she rides, and her ultimate claim to mobility. The bicycle in particular would appear to be the ideal instrument for accessing what Amy Kaplan describes as disembodied American imperialism, while asserting one's embodied masculinity, rugged independence, and physical strength. Kaplan reminds us that at the time of the American bicycle boom, American expansion and imperialism was newly understood as, quote, disembodied, that is, divorced from contiguous territorial expansion. In the same period and often the same breath, masculine identity was conceived as embodied, that is, cultivated in the muscular, robust physique, end quote. Londonderry becomes an exemplary, if despised, model of this embodied masculinity, threatening to access and incorporate foreign space into America's new empire, a disembodied approach to conquest that sought to advance power not through the occupation of space, but through this, quote, spatially unbounded quality of tireless mobility. Kaplan's analysis of US imperialism and the embodied masculinity and mobility through which this imperialism is often expressed enters into conversation with Anne McClintock's focus on the gender, class, and racial codes of British imperialism as articulated categories that, quote, come into existence in and through relation to each other, end quote. We see this link highlighted in the above passage in which Londonderry's masculine appearance and behavior speaks not only to her transgressive gender presentation, but also raises questions about her race or nationality. While her racialized identity as a Russian Jew in America has already been concealed by her ability to pass as the Anglo-American Londonderry, her racial identity as an American nevertheless helps to determine her gender and sexual deviance. Identifying Londonderry as a member of the despised third sex, an identity linked to foreignness, this reporter seeks to distance France from the dangers of such horrifying and expansionist boundary crossing. Londonderry's only remaining link to femininity was in her use of commodity fetishism to promote a, quote, commodity culture and its civilizing mission, end quote. It is not an accident that Londonderry's advertising frame is a female body. The interaction between her domestically imagined female body, her utilization of this body for the purpose of advertising, and the bicycle's role as a technology of moral mobility highlights the ways in which Londonderry exemplifies the new woman's global conquest as that which is dependent upon commodity culture and encourages the domestication of the global sphere. The domestication of the global sphere via a new woman atop a bicycle is where we find Willard once again in this complicated story of commodity, domesticity, and empire. Understanding the commodity advertisement as a vital piece of a larger civilizing mission, Londonderry's adventure fits as a perfect companion to Willard's rhetoric of a moral, wholesome conquest by bicycle. When leaving Saigon, Le Courrier wrote of Londonderry's departure, Miss Londonderry is in the process of proving to the whole world that the American race is the most tenacious and strong-headed of the universe, and furthermore that women are able to sum up the courage and energy that very few men would be able to stack. An enamored reporter from Le Courrier summed up Londonderry's adventure in a sketch, depicting a woman on a bicycle atop a globe, which in turn sits on a pedestal from which the American and French flags are flying. This is not that image, but you get the idea. It's pretty close. The image of empire and the privileged position of the new woman in this image indicates the importance of the domestic in reaching global conquest. In this brief examination of the real and symbolic power that the bicycle grants the new woman of the 1890s, we see the bicycle as a potent example of how notions of imperial progress become tied to the moral and civilizing technologies of modernity, just as domesticated commodities enter the realm of public consumption. Furthermore, we see in Londonderry's adventure how the spectacle of the new woman, including the potential gender, racial, and sexual transgressions her figure provokes, capitalizes on the consumptive allure of leisure, adventure, and the promise of domesticating imperial space with the civilizing technology of the bicycle. We have here, in the figure of the new woman and the bicycle, the makings for a mobile moral crusade. Thanks.
Okay.